Well, good afternoon. Grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, who is our resurrected, reigning, and returning Redeemer. This is Pastor Green, and I hope that your Thursday has been a good day with you and for you. It's been a couple of weeks since we gathered and talked over this particular platform, but yeah, it's been real crazy, real busy, so allow me to apologize. But for those of you who've been following and paying attention to what we've been trying to do, over the past several weeks, we've been in this series through the book of Psalms that we've entitled Songs in the Key of Life, where it has been our goal to survey the scale of human emotionality. Our, first meeting, we lived in the key of A. And the text for that letter, that emotion, anxiety, was Psalm 3. Today, we're going to be talking or living in the key of B. And I am so happy to have another mental health professional to join us in this conversation. I'm going to bring her on in just a second. She is Dr. Angela German. Come on in, Doc. Hey, Doc.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and speak with us on this matter.
Very, very pleased to be here.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So if you would you mind sharing with us your credentials? Of course, I know them, but I wouldn't want to mess anything up. So would you mind sharing with us?
I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm also currently employed as a school counselor for probably over 20 years, but I'm also a licensed professional counselor. My primary setting is in the school system, working with primary adolescents, and that's where I feel most comfortable, but I'm also licensed to practice in private as well.
Yes, ma'am. So, ladies and gentlemen, she is legit, okay? We have, she earned her doctorate, that's the key word, back in the year of our Lord, 1999. I was there, okay? I saw her walk across the stage. She is official. But again, thank you, Dr. German, for consenting to be with us today. All right, so this week we're talking living in the key of B, and we're talking about bemusement, right? But before we get on that particular emotions, share with us, maybe from personal and or professional experience, what would you tell us about the power of emotions? What would you say about
emotions? They dictate just about everything that we say and do. It affects our behavior. It affects our thoughts. And ultimately, which is most important, it affects our actions a lot of times, whether they're good or bad. So emotions can help us make decisions, whether they're small decisions, large decisions. It can help us to, influence our thoughts. So it can be a positive thing and it can be a negative thing at the same time.
Yes, ma'am. So the objectives for this series is, of course, it's threefold: to help expand our emotional vocabularies. Many people are feeling things that they cannot give voice to.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been trying to do that, and then of course, secondly, we've tried to encourage those of us who are listening toward the healthy and holy expression of emotions. This is our first first conversation on this matter since the whole Will Smith and Chris Rock conversation or encounter, right? And most people can agree that was not a healthy.
It was not.
Not a healthy expression.
Is understandable.
Sure.
But the action was the problem, I would think.
Sure. So the expression of it.
Expression of the emotion is where the problem. Yes. And in so many cases, for people in general, that's the problem. You know,
Yes,
feeling
ma'am.
feeling your emotions is one of the most normal things in the world. It's
Sure.
how we express it. That usually is a problem that gets us in trouble.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So, and then of course we want to encourage an encounter with God that can help us deal with emotion. And the emotion we're going to talk about today, we're going to be living in the key of B again, and that's bemusement. The way I understand it, you know, but bemusement is confusion, perplexity, right? Bewilderment, if you will.
And
Go ahead.
I would go a little further, and you know, because any of us could say that sometimes I'm confused or I don't process well. So we want to make sure that we understand that it's not just maybe a temporary or randomly confusion. It's more a state of confusion where we
Sure.
sort of we're there predominantly more than we are in an unconscious state or a state of confusion as opposed to functioning, you know, so it's more of a state, and we want to make sure that we understand that it's a state of confusion.
Sure. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I didn't bring that up, but that's why you're here. So thank you, Dr. German, for that. And of course, the text or the song that we tied and tried to match with this emotion is Psalm 13, where the psalmist is asking over and over again, Lord, how long? Right?
Yeah.
It's interesting because from my understanding of that particular psalm, he's bemused and he cannot find a reason for things going the way they're going. And of course, yes, he is in a state of bemusement, conflict, confusion, and perplexity. All right. So, but what else can you tell us about bemusement? What symptoms? Yeah.
You can, it's a little bit different. We tend to think, and especially as we get older, our cognitive functioning decreases somewhat, and we say, well, you know, I can't think or I'm confused. But a lot of people will say, I'm getting Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever. There's a difference here. Confusion would be more, it may come on suddenly, and it affects our consciousness or our understanding of what's going around our surroundings. Whereas if we looked at something like dementia or Alzheimer's, that's our memory. So this is a little bit more different. We're kind of detached from reality in some way with bemusement as opposed to affecting my memory. So if we want to look at some of the signs, symptoms, maybe struggling to focus, it can go from what we call hypoactive, which means listless, struggling to focus, groggy and sleepy, or it could be hyper active, where we would be on the other extreme, just acting upset, nervous, those kind of things. And sometimes it can even be a combination of those. Forgetting what task I'm doing. And again, sometimes we confuse that with just the aging process, but it's not always that because it can affect anyone. Mumbling or saying things to ourselves, talking to ourselves, not able to recognize sometimes the people that we already know we're familiar with. And then if we're going to be hyperactive, just getting upset, very volatile at any little thing. So, and it's because you're confused. You're not processing, you're not understanding. So it causes you to sort of explode at times.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So what you're saying is that the presence of this emotion or a person being in this emotional state can reflect itself in a variety of ways and at a variety of levels or degrees.
It can. And as I said, it can start from simple, lethargy, not really wanting to get out. You notice those kind of changes. Withdrawing, or whereas I was pretty much a calm person, I may explode all of a sudden and get upset, and you notice those kind of things. Maybe even mumbling and speaking to yourselves, or just, like I said, just a state of confusion. Things begin to act, a little bit differently. And for most things that I can understand, it comes on pretty suddenly. It's not just a gradual. You'll see something happening, but it's kind of a sudden onset.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. And yeah, that's yeah. uh, in this confused state, right?
Yeah, a confused
And
state.
and speak to us if you don't mind, from your perch as an educator, because um, oftentimes, and I don't say this to be pejorative, but oftentimes a child's or a young adult's emotional state can be neglected.
Yes. Especially if we want to look at sometimes even culture affects it. African Americans, um, sometimes it's stigmatized if you have problems dealing with your emotions or things that you haven't dealt with. And we're told, we keep things in the family, we don't deal with it. And so a lot of times people learn to suppress their feelings and emotions. And then all of a sudden it gets to the point where it reaches a boiling point and it's out of control. And of course, teenagers, depending on early adolescence, you're looking at 12, 13, which is a lot of my 13, 14, my teaching experience. And then later on, all the way up through 17, 18-year-olds. There's a world of difference, believe it or not. But everything is a crisis sometimes. And, one of the favorite things we'll tell them is older, wait till you get older and so on, but very emotive. Teenagers are very emotive, and you have to direct them constantly that there is an alternative way to behave. And a lot of times, again, the emotions themselves are normal. We don't like some of the things that have happened or to us or whatever. Emotions themselves, anger, frustration, whatever, they're very normal. It's what we do with that is the problem.
Sure, sure, sure. So, how do being a mental health professional, since 99, that's over 20 years. How would you gauge the I guess the progress that our community and people like us are making to deal with mental health? What would you say, from your perch today?
From the perspective, I think from, then to now, I think we have made progress. I think there's still a whole lot of progress to be made. And the reason I say that is because, as we know, we need more people involved in raising children these days because, and that goes to the community, our churches can play an important role because, again, it was one of those things where, Big Mama said, don't talk about things that go on outside of this house or whatever it is. And over the years, we're learning that one of the healthiest things you can do is to talk about what you're feeling and normalize
Sure.
that, hey, I'm not okay.
Sure.
Normalizing that I need some help. I need just a little touch. There's nothing wrong with me. I just need a little help dealing with these stresses and pressures. So the more that we do that, the more that we make people feel that, hey, you're okay. There's nothing wrong with you.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong if I need a little extra something to help me with my everyday struggles. The more we can do that, the better off we will see. Maybe even some of these behaviors where people are exploding, we see mass shootings, those kinds of things.
Sure.
That's a result of something. It's a result of something probably that has built up. So the more we can normalize the expression of our feelings, the better.
Sure. Okay. Well, we're wrapping it up. Yeah. So what, how would you advise our hearers and even myself? We're talking about, I'm sure you see this all the time, parents who are not healthy mentally, trying to raise and rear children who don't have the tools to express how they're feeling. How would you, what would you, how would you advise us in regards to treatment or coping?
Some of the things that I think we need to do, again, the biggest thing is to be able to have open dialogue between, it's very important, a parent and a child, that they can come to you. We need to normalize some of the things that they're thinking and feeling, even though we may say, with my wisdom becomes a lot of things that I thought were important 30 years ago, not so much important now. To that individual is very important at that time, even though we know at some point they may go through something much worse. At that time it is. Normalize that.
So don't sweep it under the rug.
Don't sweep it under the rug. Bring it out and deal with it, because we make problems larger when we ignore them or pretend that they don't exist. Keep them grounded in the present moment, especially if they're going through confusion and stuff. Let's do the here and now. What can we do now? We can't always do anything about what happened before. Keep them in the here and now. One of the other things is, even when we're doing parenting, they sort of take things personally when the child sees something different from them. Help them to understand it's not a criticism of their parenting, of their ability to deal with their child. Because even if those of us who have raised more than one child, we know that everything that worked with one does not work with another. So just because it worked with one doesn't mean it's going to work with the other. Make it normal. Adjust to what you have, the differences in children, how they respond to correction or to crisis, things like that. Try to promote healthy things, sleep habits, eating habits, keep them active. When we withdraw and allow to just sleep and not deal with things, again, the less we deal with it, the deeper we get into some of our confusion and our depression and things. So keep active. And by all means, there should be a safe place for that person to go to. It may not always be the parent. It may be a teacher, it may be a preacher, it may be someone, a counselor, whoever, but there needs to be a safe place for that person to go when that they can openly share their feelings.
Got it. Okay, so those steps were pretty much geared towards children. What would you say to adults that find themselves in a bemused state, a perplexed state, a confused state, a disorienting state? How would you?
Some of the same things that I would say. We have to also realize again that emotions control a lot of our thought processes. We have to understand, and eventually thought processes lead to actions. So we have to realize that, again, healthy emotions or expressing yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. It's what we do with it. Anger, hostility, even if we don't we dislike someone or whatever's going on. And the same things I would say, your environment. If you withdraw, the more you withdraw, the easier it becomes, the less you want to deal with it. And let's face it, most emotions are painful. They require us to dig deep and to face some things that we don't, that are uncomfortable.
Sure.
But in order to us to be as healthy as we can, then you have to stop avoiding those things. Again, same thing I would encourage them to do, open dialogue, find that safe place. Habits, knowing that everything I'm thinking and feeling is normal. There's nothing wrong with me mentally, but I may just need a little extra help. And sometimes it can be a situational where I'm going through a very, very stressful time in my life. Things will get better if I process through it. If I don't, then it's going to probably continue to snowball and I'm going to go the opposite direction. So some of the same things, the open dialogue, learning to control the things that you can control and not other people and what they think and feel and say. The only thing you can be in control of is what you say, do, think, say, and do.
Sure. And of course, we're talking about, safe spaces and things of that sort as a means of treatment and coping. But I'm trying to push, over the course of this series, okay, yes, we have the faith dynamic.
Yes.
And spirituality. However, like I wore a shirt Sunday that said Jesus and therapy.
Yes.
So in closing, could you encourage our listeners, to seek that kind of help?
We're taught as mental health professionals to sort of keep those things separate. However, for me in my personal life, and for if a client never brings up that part of them, the faith or whatever, then we have to work with them on that basis. But for me, it's always one of the areas that I use to get myself through things. And then as the conversations come, if the person reveals that there is a belief and there is a way, then I encourage them to get back in touch with those kind of things. Because for me personally, that's one of the things that keeps me rooted and grounded. And a lot of people, it has gotten them through those kind of things to maybe read scriptures. None of us may be totally able to quote scriptures and do in depth, scriptures, but there are some things that we can be reminded of. And if we think about a lot of the sayings that we hear on a daily basis, they come from scripture. They come from some form of the scripture that may have been revised, but it's wisdom that is derived from scriptures and from those things that may have been shortened. So whatever things what we can, and of course, for me, that is a big part of it, but you also have to meet a person where they are, because if they're not there, everybody's at different levels, then you have to take them again. So much of our mental state starts in our mind and what we're telling ourselves about the situation, how we handle it. And then we can also find one of the biggest things I do, we can talk ourselves out of being upset and to calm down and to handle this in a different way, just as easily as we can talk ourselves into. So what we're telling ourselves about our situations go a long way. And if we're telling ourselves that I don't need God, or I don't need faith, or I'm not going to be able to get through this, then we got to have something that's going to, pull me. If faith and God doesn't play a part, then something has to be able to pull me until I can get to that point.
Sure. So what I basically hear you saying is, and we're running out of time, use every resource available.
Every resource available. Every resource available.
Yes, ma'am. So again, Dr. German, we are out of time. I know we have so much more to say. I feel like we just scratched the surface, but of course, I told you 20 minutes and I want to honor that. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing?
Only thing, as I said, reiterating for young people, no matter what age you are, that emotions, there's nothing wrong with emotions. There's nothing wrong with anger. We're taught, don't do this and don't do that. Don't be angry. Don't get that. Again, the anger, the emotions themselves are not the bad thing. It's what we do with them and how we handle them that gets us into trouble. So we need to find ways to cope with the emotions, because they can overwhelm.
Sure. And what I've been especially encouraged by in the study of these Psalms is that there's usually a shift, or we can tell a shift in mood, but there's not necessarily been a shift in situation.
Exactly. It's what we're telling ourselves. The situation may not change, but what we tell ourselves about the situation is where the shift comes. Because again, I can talk myself and saying, oh, this is horrible. I can't make it. I'm not going to get through this or whatever. And then I can also turn around and talk myself and say, okay, this is a bad situation, but I have something that I can reach back from past experiences. How did I get through that last situation? Whatever. And then I can see that shift going when I say, well, you made it through that, you can make it through the next one. And that's that shift.
Sure. Well, folks, there you have it. It's another episode in this series, this expansion of the sermon. Thank you so much again, Dr. German.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much again. So friends, have a good rest of your day. Go in the grace of God, and may the grace of God